Hello everyone, I'm Chris Taylor from the College of Architecture, and it's a distinct pleasure and honor to welcome tonight's speaker, Butch Hancock, Lubbock native and member of the iconic band The Flatlanders, which I imagine most of you know that already, which is why you're here. And perhaps you're wondering why one of America's genius songwriters is lecturing at the College of Architecture. Good question. Before we begin, we need to thank a few people. The persistent eagerness of art faculty Jeff Wheeler was instrumental in bringing Butch to Lubbock. Jeff organized an exhibition, a one-night-only exhibition that's happening tomorrow, 6 to 9, down in his space at Farm to Market Arts Studio Flat, Louise Underwood Hopkins Center. I encourage y'all to come out and see some of Butch's drawings down there. The technical wizardry of Andy Wilkinson was essential tonight to make the video happen. Thanks, Andy. Hiding in plain sight. It's the best place to hide. And then also, this has been made possible by the College of Architecture. Dean Andrew Benoit, Associate Dean Clifton Ellis, and Chair Maria Carbolini were instrumental from at the beginning to make this happen. And Victoria McReynolds, Joss Nason were also, they're the ones actually holding all the balloon strings together. So I started learning about Butch the first time I moved to Texas in the mid-1990s. Legend had it that he had a store in downtown Austin called Lubbock or Leave It, where you could find WD-40, cassette tapes, and mostly people hanging around. Guess it was more of a salon than a store, but sadly I never stopped in, so I can't say for sure. The whole thing may be a bit of a legend, yet I fancy what the story says about a creative life and the importance of building community by any means necessary. Before heading upstream to Lubbock in 2008, Allison Faust, another Lubbock native and editor at the University of Texas Press, gave me a copy of Chris Ogilvy's book, Fire in the Water, Earth in the Air, Legends of West Texas Music. The interview with Butch was vivid in how he framed what I see as the pedagogy of the Llano Escotado, the way we learn from this place. It was the first reading I signed when I landed on campus. And in it, he makes a powerful case when he said, "Architecture is a wonderful way to put all the mysteries together. It is also a great thing to study instead of songwriting in order to write songs. I truly believe that if you have a creative passion in life, you need to study something else as well, because in doing so, you're going to be measuring the new thing against your passion. Suddenly you got a whole new set of ideas, ways and means of accomplishing your goal. It's like binocular vision. That new point of view will then correspond to your chosen field and give you new patterns and ideas, new ways to expand and build and construct." The interview caused me to wonder instantly if the college maintained a connection to Butch, and if not, to ask how we might go about reestablishing one. It's been a bit of a quest since. In 2009, on my way up from Big Bend, we stopped at the City View General Store for a cold drink and to admire the porch. There, on a light blue piece of paper, was an invitation to a brunch in Terlingua, with music by Butch Hancock, happening right now. So naturally we had to go, since I'd been eager to meet him since arriving here. My partner, who's based on the East Coast where requisite skepticism is the norm, figured someone would be sitting there with a boombox playing a CD of his music. But she indulged me and we made our way to Espresso and Coco Mas and found Butch sitting in the shade amid 5 or 6 youngsters with guitars, taking turns singing and telling stories. It was as if we had just walked into a songwriter's workshop. Butch is a profound reader of place in his life and in his music. He witnesses the strength of human interaction with the potency of landscape, and he makes legible the epic within minute particulars. Details matter in his work, and he processes them with grace. Now, some of you may ask why the College of Architecture is hosting a lecture by a songwriter and artist, other than the important fact that he was a student of our fine institution in the late 60s, before, as we know, finding it necessary to pursue other essential interests, such as driving tractor and creating music. The theme for our lecture series is generative sensing. Through that frame, we are examining many forms people develop to read the world and their work, and perhaps more important, what they make from that reading, what they generate. Deep lessons for architects exist in pursuits beyond the silos of our disciplinary specializations. Expanding the frame and interconnections of knowledge is the core of higher education, and it's central to the vision of the college. Just the other day, on Halloween actually, Terry Gross interviewed Tom Waits on her radio show Fresh Air. Seeming to anticipate tonight's event, Tom said, for a songwriter, you don't really go to school, to songwriting school. You learn by listening to tunes. You try to understand them, take them apart, see what they're made of, and wonder if you can make one too. You just do it by picking up the needle and putting it back down, figuring how these people did this magical thing. It's rather mystifying when you think about songs, where they come from, how they're born. Many times it's very humble and mundane, the origin of these songs. A key issue to track over the course of the evening, and perhaps a challenge, especially for the students in the room, is to digest the lessons in Butch's work and ask how they may affect our own making. So please welcome me and join me in welcoming Butch here. Thank you very much.
Man, all of that, and I get to play the guitar too? Amazing.
You can do whatever you want.
What a planet. That's been my main mantra for probably 30 years now. Every time I turn around, I just go, wow, what a planet. It fits so many things. Before I get started, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I just started, so yeah. Before I get started, well, I really have already started. So now I'm telling you, I was going to tell you something that happened before I told you I'm going to say something before I get started. Time is going completely crazy right now. What happens? What is it that's happening when we think we're in the present? There's something to be said for silence. We think we're in the presence of present, but it doesn't really exist in a very, very real way. We're using our memory and our whole field of memory, that we've got systems upon systems of memory rattling around in our brains, right? Trying to talk to each other, all these different systems. And they form a kind of a filter, kind of a blank board maybe, a blackboard or a chalkboard, where we write what we think is the present. And yet, we're using the past, and it doesn't exist anymore, right? And the same could be said for the future. So what is this thing in the middle? And is it in the middle? Time is quite a conundrum. When I heard this theme for the lecture series, generative sensing, or as a good West Texan would say, generative sensing. All right. I know what that is. I was at first perplexed because I didn't know whether it was, an oxymoron. It sounds a little bit, like two words kind of might be fighting each other. I didn't know whether it was a redundancy. Think about that. Sensing and generating. Yeah, isn't that what sensing is generating? And isn't that what the whole universe is doing? It's exchanging little bits of information. Rocks, how do rocks sense? They heat up in the sun. They cool down in the wintertime. Now, we normally wouldn't call that sensing, would we? But it is, in a sense, it's sensing. I'm going to read a few things from some past writings that might give us some frameworks to look at, considering Sensing. I truly think that sensing is generative sensing is rampant in the universe. I don't think there's, I was talking with Michael last night about it, and I said, yeah, bring me something that's not generative sensing. Can you think of anything? Anybody? I mean, really, seriously. Everything that parades through your mind does something to your consciousness. It helps build your consciousness. It helps build your memory. And your memory is where that's where we juggle everything. So we'll try not to drop the ball that we're juggling. Okay? Let's see. How did that one get there? I love being in a place where I'm doing something for the first time like this, because I truly don't know what I'm doing, and I can prove it. But and you know, some of you will think so. But I'd like to read this thing here. It's a piece about theater. There's so many ways of saying it. How do we say it in West Texas, Michael? You've heard it before. Theater, right? That's it. The scale of theater. And let me preface this with a haiku that was written by a friend of mine that I met on the internet. She lives in Israel and has to break away from her computer quite almost daily to go take shelter because there's bombs and mortar shells everywhere over there. But still, almost every day she would enter a haiku, and this was one of my favorite ones ever. I fill my bucket, I pour it out. Bucket or no bucket. Light attracts attention. In the throes of reciprocal feeding, as is everything, light's wondrous radiance and dispersal turns a corner, and from divergence, it is seen to turn into convergence. Attention seems to radiate from single point of view and to grasp and gather in the unruly radiance of everything else, to bring it all home, to focus, to converge. The co-arising dependence of conditions, all the stuff that's around, and attention is looping through emergence, divergence, and convergence. The innate stage is set, the ocean of awareness. The obscuring curtain of duality is lowered. From ignorance, dramas of dharmas line up in anticipation. The 12 causal spherical links are perfectly packed around each selfish sphere of attention. The audience waits the movie or the play. The baby grabs the bottle. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. The fall from grace is explained, grasping what suits you. Michelangelo's hands of God and man, almost touching fingers. But the gap is there, how close we are to truth. The sin of separation and duality linger. But the time has come, it's showtime. The obscuring curtain of duality is raised, and suddenly the whole theater is of one mind, one scale, one space. Stage lights attract attention. The drama, the comedy, the tragedy unfolds in a magic display. Disbelief, a facet of misconception, is willfully and willingly suspended, right? And it's replaced for a while by belief, another facet of misconception. For when the curtain lifts, ignorance dissolves into birth, a story is born. A huge system of systems, lifetimes of experiences, rivers and streams of consciousness and conditions converge and percolate through the minds of the writer or writers to focus into a script, a pattern, a potential, a model, an image of life, or life imagined. Director and crew, actors, actresses, yea, even a producer or a rewriter pitch in. A place to perform is selected and made ready. The word is spread. Some tickets are sold. The vision gestates in rehearsal. The performance, magnificent and all, has the conscious audience mirror, laughing and crying, approving and disapproving, nervous and calm, disgusted and fulfilled, charmed. Even the schizophrenic critic stops taking notes and weeps. Mind, scale, space. You laugh to keep from crying, and when that doesn't work, you cry. And when that doesn't work, well, you give up. And when that doesn't work, then you work. And when that doesn't work, just that. And the performance is over. Too short, or too long, or too just right. Another moment of truth arrives. The curtain call, encores, and the curtain is lowered. The conscious audience mirror leaves the theater. The tide ebbs back into the ocean. The pattern, just seen and somehow absorbed, is taken out of the theater and into a larger pattern, a larger theater, where it is tested and tasted and assimilated, as Stubbs used to say. A pattern of a segment of life is worn in real life. So how soon will that pattern wear out? How soon after we see a movie and we're feeling that movie, and we step out into the sun or out into the night, and we kind of carry that with us for a little while, but you know, next morning you wake, it's almost forgotten. Maybe a lot of movies are like that. Some of them are not. Parables, tales, fables, stories, and analogies are all kinds are merely concise patterns of potentials, which can be comprehended as models and thereby convey the patterns to a larger scale, to your lifetime. They convey these patterns to a larger scale in a symbolic tone of mind. This is the purpose of scale and dimensioning. In the oneness that is mind and scale and space, scale operates from small to large and large to small, in and out, out and in, more to less and less to more. And scale is equanimity, and it's the equalizer of all. Unbarnacled drama, a magic display in all and everything. There's no exceptions. Theater or no theater. Many years ago, Flatlanders, we were living on famous 14th Street, a couple of blocks off the campus. One morning, I woke up before everybody else did. In fact, I did that quite often at that house. Those of you who haven't heard the story, it was a place where there was always somebody asleep and there was always somebody awake. And almost always some music going somewhere in the house. But I woke up this Sunday morning, and it was a rare foggy morning in Lubbock. And went in and sat down at the kitchen so-called table, and this song just kind of poured in with the morning light through the fog. But if you were a bluebird, you'd be a sad one. I'd give you a true word, but you already had one. If you were a bluebird, you'd be crying, you'd be flying home. And if you were a raindrop, you'd shine like a rainbow. But if you were a train stop, that conductor would sing low. If you were a raindrop, you'd be falling, you'd be calling home. If you were a hotel, you'd be a grand one. But if you hit a slow spell, do you think you could stand one? If you were a hotel, I'd lean on your doorbell and I'd call you my own. And if I was a highway, I'd stretch alongside you. I'd help you pass byways that have dissatisfied you. If I was a highway, I'd be stretching and I'd be fetching you home. Yeah, if you were a bluebird, you'd be a sad one. And I'd give you a true word, but you already had one. If you were a bluebird, you'd be crying, you'd be flying home. Years ago, I had this, bought a series of photograph books and used them for journals. I would kind of fill in the blanks. There were a lot of blank pages, you know, facing the photographs. And I just began to write. This book was the American Photographers of the Depression. The Farm Security Administration had assigned the mission of documenting, or at least finding favorable photographs to appear to have documented worked a little bit both directions, I think. But the images that came up were extraordinary things. And I used that as a kind of a base. This was a kind of a phase of sensitive generating for me. It was trying to sense what was these photographs, how they came about, where they came from. And being a photographer, I was continually amazed by how the photographer had found that particular image. But one of the things I wrote is this one. When I was tractor driving, man, you know, first I should tell about tractor driving. Do we have any tractor drivers in here? Anybody? Oh, yes, it's the 21st century. I tell you, it's there's a diminishing number of tractor drivers, but the story goes that you know, after the first couple of minutes on the tractor every morning, this is true, you've done about 95% of the heavy mental work for the day. And you're staring at 8 or 9 hours, 10 hours sometimes in the face, you know, and wondering, whoa, now what? And suddenly, you know, sensitive generating is the last thing on your mind. And yet, you sit there and back and forth on the tractor, and the rhythm sets in, the tractor rhythm, the engine, and how it would bog down sometimes in sandy soil or in where the soil was harder. The disc, I was driving a machine that pulled behind an International Harvester tractor, and it was called a terracing machine. You guys have seen these terraces. My dad was in the earth-moving business around here, on all the farms, 50, 60-mile radius of Lubbock, and he'd have me out there driving the tractor. And this machine had a big disc in it, about this big around, and it would go down into the earth and throw a roll of earth up onto a conveyor belt, and then the conveyor belt would carry it off 14 feet away and throw it out into the terrace, and you would go back and forth on both sides of the terrace, and it would gradually build up. There was a pretty complicated way of making the terrace rise into a nice, smooth rise and fall. But I found out, I actually took my harmonica rack out there one day and found out that second gear at 2/3 throttle was actually the key of G. It was kind of, you know, and so I shift gears, speed up, slow down, and play all my tunes that I already knew. And I started making up new ones that way. And one other thing to preface about all of this is, at one time I was going to put out a double album. It was going to be called The Agnostic and Mama God. And because, you know, I thought the feminine side of the universe needed a little more attention. Now, in this book, I've addressed the fable, the myth of you. Who is this you? It may have been Mama God. It might have been my muse at the time I wrote some of these things. It might have been someone specific. It might have been someone else specific. But when I was tractor driving, I got to where I could see you in the clear blue sky, just before dawn and all morning long, right on into the dusty, pale, blue-white heat of the noonday sunshine, and on to the blue of the sky around the sunset. I'd have to ignore the most beautiful sunsets with screaming, crying colors blazing for my attention. I'd have to look past them into the blue, the perfect blue. I got to where I could see you in the cold gray clouds of winter, just there, between the wind I'd shiver as you blew through my bones and kissed my face. And even in the dusty sand and blowing sand and spring sandstorms, my eyes would burn red with grit and sand bouncing out of them. And my skin was red, sandblasted in the wind. But I'd squint and brush away the sand and sweat caked on my face and eyes. I'd brush it out, and before more sand could get back in to replace it, I'd sneak a glimpse of you. I'd see your form and a fleeting expression of your face flying by. The tears in my eyes were not from the sand and sun and wind. And I'd drive on and on and on until the day was done, and then until another day was done, and another and another. And soon another season was gone. Shadows shifted, angry angles tilted, leaned into the wind and softened. And later I'd write a few clues about you, about your face, your fair form, your flight, your traces, your clouds, your colors, your tears, your song, in my own songs. Some of them will never be finished, no matter how many times we sing them. A few months back, it occurred to me that I hadn't heard anybody write a song about a tree in West Texas in a long time. I'm sure somebody has. Of course, the one that comes to mind first is Joe Ely's song about do you know why the trees bend, the West Texas border? Because of the wind. It's a beautiful thing. I got to remember, my first impressions of trees were just like, it's like kids always knew. The first thing you do with a tree is you climb it. Kids just, they go for a tree and up they go. But when we finally moved into Lubbock, when I was about the age of 4 or 5, it was about another year before I saw the pine tree. It was about 5 blocks away from our house. And it was the most strange thing I'd seen. I almost had trouble believing it was a tree. The leaves weren't normal. There were these needles. And anyway, through the years, I finally sat down and said, hey, somebody from Lubbock should write a song about the pine tree. And this is it. This is the one. And it's really not about a pine tree. It's about a pine cone. Pine cone dropping from a lonesome pine. Where does all the money go? Question marks hide behind a dollar sign. Why I never knew, I'll never know. Pine cone dropping from a lonesome pine. If it hits me on my head, I'll be in tears. If I see some stars, I'll take it for a sign. It's the only sign of light I've seen in years. Meet me in the rain if it ever rains. Meet me if the sun shines interfering. Tear my heart apart, I loved you from the start, but I have a funny way of disappearing. Nose cone drop dropping from a big Bombay, lighting up the sky before the dawn. Here and there and now and then, history has its way, but I can tell by looking that you're gone. And who am I to say when it comes to night or day? It's neither either one or the other. It's far beyond a doubt, and when it's pointed out, I cannot tell my own heart from another. Meet me in the rain if it ever rains. Meet me if the sun shines overflowing. Like dewdrops on a rose, love sure comes and goes, but it has a funny way of reappearing. Indian summer, not so far to fall. Old man winter's got a hold on us all. Not much happening, spring brings tears. It's the only sign of love I've seen in years. Snow cone melting in the July sun. Where do all the memories go? It's not like I'd forget you, no, it's not like that at all. And I just sort of thought you ought to know. Meet me in the rain if it ever rains. Meet me if the sun shines disappearing. Like dewdrops on a rose, love sure comes and goes, but it has a funny way of reappearing. Pine cone dropping from a lonesome pine. Where does all the money go? Question marks hide behind the dollar sign. Why I never knew, I'll never know. Thank you. So how is, I had a great tour today, Richard and Stephanie, gave me the full 9 yards, full 10, 12, what do you call them, floors of the architecture building. And it has changed slightly since I was there back in the 1800s, whenever, it seemed like a long time ago. And yeah, I'm just thinking of generative sensing. Does that phrase make sense to you guys? I mean, yeah, I believe it does, but it's I just can't get away from the idea that that everything is exactly that. No exceptions. Are there? Anybody got any ideas about that? Don't care? Okay.
I'll tell you what.
Onward through the fog.
Here we go.
That one. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. This is... Webs. Okay. Last night, a spider, and you know, these are the things that get my attention somehow. Last night, a spider busily built, a giant masterpiece in the dark. Early morning, light rain was accompanied by rolling thunder on this gray spring day. The web spans the universe between live oak trees. The strands are all a-sparkle with brilliant Buddha fields, reflections of mind. Each drop is doing its best to reflect the entire universe. I'll go back to that theater. The curtain falls and the house lights dim. You step from the theater, lamenting the sudden return to ordinary world. Were the actors real? Were they really there? Having not really touched, you step to the curb and try to scrape the gum from your shoe. Okay, so I didn't read the theater piece first, did I? Did I read that? Was anybody paying attention? Did I do? I did, okay. Okay, good, then I read those in order. Like I say, time jumps around in this brain up here. Okay, this is a little short bit of noticing I did one morning. There's a fellow down in Wimberley that I see just about every morning at the cafe down there. This was back, I think, during the earthquake in Haiti. A world of horror films, you know. That's a hard word for me to say. A world of horror. This winter sky overflows here with no fear. A man with one leg sits in the sun, admiring this clear winter day. A few weeks ago, I was driving on one of the back roads down around Austin. I had to hit the brakes and swerve to miss them. And two cars behind me came to a complete stop. In my rearview mirror, two peacocks crossed the road safely. This is a little book I've been working on all of last year, not this year, but last year. I didn't write any songs last year. Instead, I worked on this. And I'm going to find just the right thing. Oh yeah, okay. A mark is made at birth, a mark is made at death, by some other than the one who is born and dies. No one makes their own marks, or maybe soon after birth, or a bit before death, one does. But others mark one's birth and death. And at times, so to speak, one makes those marks for someone else. How can we even vaguely imagine that we are all, or any of us, anything other than one and the same? We are just reflections in transit. Yet we are not the mirrors we bounce into and out of, and we're not the images seen on the clear, shining surface. We're not even the changing of those images day by day. Long look by look, or brief glance by glance, we are reflections in transit. We are never apprehended or trapped, not even caught in a photo. We are never shadowed, followed, tracked, or traced. Any likeness is not a likeness. All identity be damned. We are never here nor there. All coordinates gathered are non-existing data. We reach for coordinates that have just disappeared. And the calculus and guesstimates of plans and predictions that appear to keep appearances in static balance or in kinetic balancing, these are mere transits of themes and memes and memories hurled into mostly tragic trajectories to possibly pad the landings of conceptualities inherent in accuracy. A yawn is just a yawn. A kiss is just a kiss. Songs are sung, ships are sailed, typhoons come and go. The hard work is done day by day, moment by moment. It's the years and the decades, the centuries and the eons that pass by effortlessly, not at all unlike a hawk hovering in the wind. Could we have some of the slides rocking and rolling now? Oops. We'll have to turn that one off and then, okay. Okay, I've got to find this and read this real briefly. Another true story from West Texas. And if I don't find it, we'll skip it. So my son, Rory, who's 14, talk about sensitive generating. A few months ago, he said, "Hey, Dad, I bet they named oranges before they named carrots." I thought it was brilliant. It's like, why did I not ever think of that one? Okay. Well, that's 59th Street, right here in Lubbock, and that vehicle is my first car. The one on the right. What is that? I can't believe we own that other thing. What is that? Anybody recognize what that other one is? It looks like a...
Caddy.
No, it's not a caddy.
It's a Chevrolet Bel Air.
It's a... I believe it's a... I don't know. Is it a Chevy? We didn't have a Chevrolet. We didn't have a Cadillac. Maybe it could be a Plymouth. No, we had a white Plymouth. It's probably a Buick. We had more Buicks than anything. Okay. Apologize for the dead air, but like I said, there's something to be said for silence. Okay. It's not anger. Yeah. Okay. No. Next slide. This is me as a tractor driver, folks. This is how I had to do it. It wasn't even cold that day, but it was sandy. And I would dress up like that to just keep the dust out. Next one, please. Okay, this is me as a young architecture student here at Texas Tech. Me and my friends had a place down on Broadway. Get a load of this. This is like 2 or 3 houses down from Avenue Q on Broadway. The Pike House was right next door to us. And we were, you know, hippies at that time, best way you could describe us. And I had that little motorcycle, and I would always keep it in the living room. Next slide. And that's my friend Alan Barber. I don't know whether he's going in or out. For a while, the front door didn't work. But we finally got it to working again, and every morning I'd keep it in there mainly during, you know, to keep thieves from taking advantage of it. But every morning I'd fire it up right there in the house, and I'd come zooming out of that door and seeing how far I could get onto the sidewalk, you know. I was not much of an evil Knievel. I spilled it several times, but next slide. Great fun. Yeah, well, you know, guys, I've seen some of this around here. It's these are going to be some of the pictures I've taken over the years. Keep going, slide, please. I like this one because I can't believe the dog's shadow of his legs are so damn skinny. That looks like somebody's fingers. Next slide. I've been doing river trips. I got to be a river guide with Far Flung Adventures out of Terlingua. And this is one of the most magnificent little places right here. It's the entrance to Santa Elena Canyon. You go right in there where that shadow is, you go in, and it's 300 feet straight up on each side, about 30 or 40 feet apart. And for 9 miles, it gradually increases in height, the canyon, or depth, depending on which way you want to look at it. Is the canyon half full or is it half empty? I don't know. The next one is a magnificent, magnificent place. And this is sideways, of course, but I always like to look at reflections from different angles, and it looks kind of spooky. Huh. That would make a pretty good Halloween mask. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, one morning, okay, here's an interesting thing about sensing. I shot this probably 5 or 6, well, must have been 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun was already up. And it was a very foggy morning, and I was driving back into Austin at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was doing 70, 75, okay, 80 miles an hour down the highway. And I just glimpsed out of the side of my eye, you know, I just glimpsed these little shiny, sparkly cobwebs over on the fence right by the road. And I kept going, and about a mile down the road, I went, wait a minute, that's too good. And I stopped and turned around and came back and shot a bunch of photographs, and this is one. I just love it. It's just a little windmill beyond and a tree. Spiders are very clever. Next slide, please. This is in Nepal, and I was lucky to go over there. I went over there right after I went to Hong Kong. I was invited to come over and play at the 12th annual Hong Kong Folk Festival. And I was the token Texan. It was put on by kind of the remnants of the British Empire in Hong Kong. It was about 2 years before they had to turn it back. We had, you know, did we have it? A lease on it or something? What's the deal about Hong Kong? No, it was Panama we had the lease on, yeah. What was Hong Kong? It was going back, the British, they didn't have a lease on it, but they thought they did. That's what it was. They had a deal. They had made a deal to turn it back over, right, at 1999, I think. Well, so I went on over the next week and played in Kathmandu. And I was totally amazed by that country. It was truly a place where I believe I could have just gone around blindfolded and taken pictures at random and had some remarkable photographs. It's everywhere you looked, it was just amazing sights and people and sounds. Next slide, please. While I was there, I actually played at these are just some guys hanging out, man. What a way to hang out, isn't it? Next one. There were magic little doors, little gateways and openings that you'd sit there and just watch, you know, an empty little hallway and opening onto a street. Suddenly, somebody would walk by, or one of those little crazy tricycle taxis they had would beep its horns and come by. And I wound up playing at a club there called the Yak and Yeti Club. I'm so proud to have that one on my resume. Okay, next one, please. Just a doorway, it's a little hard to see, I'm sorry. Next one. These ladies were at another kind of portal, fetching water. You know, some people around the world, I mean, there's movements of, you know, around the world these days to help get people some real water, you know, healthy water, and not have to walk 3 or 4 miles to get it. I think these folks only had to walk a few blocks, but at least they had some good water. Next one, please. Oh yeah, down to Mexico we went. Did some river trips down there. And everywhere you looked, again, there were things that you would, kind of iconic little images like this, like, wow, a shooting star, but it's a Christmas decoration, sure, but it's still the most bizarre looking thing. Look at that. Don't you wish you could make one like that? Yeah. Got to start somewhere and then do it. Yeah. Next one, please. And this was, you know, after all the drawings I've done, and I'll show you some of those in a little bit, I was amazed that somebody had already built something that is at least like something I drew, and a little more far out, perhaps. This was called El Dragon, and it's a kind of little water park that was put together at an old resort on the Rio Antigua in the state of Veracruz in Mexico. And next one, please. There's 2 or 3 of these that are, and you even get the concrete palm tree. Isn't that awesome? I really wish I had one of those out in Terlingua. We need shade badly. But, next one. There was these were the stairs, I think, and there was a little water slide that you could take to get back down. It turned into a little swimming pool. They got it finished. It's a beautiful spot. There's some sulfur springs there and hot springs, and that was kind of the takeout place on our boating trips. We'd wind up right there. Okay, next slide. We, in all our disguises, get that look of determination or desire or distance or despair or simply delay in our eye. And we stand around corners of buildings or near windows or at a street corner somewhere near an edge. Because edges and other transitional systems are just drenched in the reality of potential and transition, almost as much as they are drenched in the illusion of those qualities. At a street corner, you just sense that something's about to happen. Sometimes even when the light changes, that's a pretty big event for somebody. Hell, you never know, somebody might even walk by or stop or at least say howdy or maybe nod or smile. Maybe edges are those places where everyone feels a little bumpy or slippery or feels a little friction all of a sudden, or all of a sudden feels no friction, but at any rate feels some kind of abrupt change or disturbance from their inertia and their momentum. Maybe edges are where the noises all collide, and for a moment, it becomes perfect silence before it bounces back out, or on out to its echo, its reverberation, its resonance. Maybe there's a peace to the edges that many of us don't notice, and that may be the only peace some folks ever feel. I want to show you guys a kind of a schematic that I'll attempt to draw these things here. Where they came from. Where they came from was 20 or 30 years ago, maybe 40, 50, 100, I don't know. Many, many years ago, it seems. Down in Austin, I had for years been using a couple of ideas for to explain the idea of resistance. You know, you get resistance when you're doing things, right? But there's resistance even when you're not doing something. There's resistance to getting up off your butt and doing something, right? It's called inertia. It's called, laziness. There's many forms of resistance. The universe is this wonderful interplay. Here we go of freedom and resistance in everything. There's, if you're going to push against something, you got to have some resistance. Slick floor like this, you can kind of, you lose it, So one of the first ideas I had about resistance was things like, the moment you push down on something, like a little table, right at the tip of your finger where you just touch it, just sense it, there is resistance there. You're feeling it. You push a little harder, oh well, that paper bends. Push a little harder. I better be careful because I know what happened right before we started. The harder you push, the further that it spreads. The resistance spreads. Push hard enough, those legs really go, the legs of the little music stand start to really exercise, don't they? If it was strong enough and you pushed hard enough, the floor itself would deform a little. And the resistance could go all the way, how far does it go? How far does that resistance go? The chairs you're sitting in are doing the same thing. And the way you got your hand on your face, there's resistance. You feel it. You push harder, see what happens. You start to feel it on the other side of your head, right? So the more you're pushing, the more action, the more strength you're doing, the more resistance you're going to be getting to it. And so that was one example of where resistance comes from. Another one was just the idea of the automobile. We get in our automobile, we start it up, it's kind of, you have to shoot the electrical juice to the starter to get it to overcome its inertia of stillness and get it to turning, and it's gonna have to, you get more juice going into it to turn the whole engine over, and the engine's gotta overcome that, urge not to get into movement, and then you finally get it started, and you're fine. You start it, you get it in first gear, off you go. You're overcoming the inertia of sitting still, and you work it on up, and you go all the way up through the gears, and you're finally going 70, 80 miles an hour in high gear, and your engine is turning, getting up there pretty fast, up in the high power range, and you're also getting the most resistance at that point. You're getting resistance from the road. You're getting way more resistance from the air than you ever had. Certainly no resistance just sitting there, except in Lubbock when the wind blows, And you're at the same time you're generating the most horsepower at that peak level. And those were good examples of how resistance interplays with force, and with the force of freedom, the force of overcoming resistance. But it still wasn't explaining some problems that we were having with the project. My girlfriend at the time, Jeanette Norman, and I were working with deaf students in some art projects. And we discovered that we were getting resistance from states away. Little bitty things caused a resistance to this project that we were trying to get together. We were trying to have a meeting in Austin, and somebody, that had to be there didn't make it and called in absent at the last possible minute because his doorknob, this was a deaf guy in Carolina, I think, that his doorknob had fallen off on the inside and he couldn't get out of his house. This was a very strange thing. I don't know, it might have been total BS, but at any rate, we were getting this resistance from apparently a doorknob, 1,500 miles away. And I was going, how can that be? It doesn't make it, you can kind of follow the line of reasoning about it, but so how can resistance come from so far away? And a bit of brainstorming or blind luck or something, we came up with some ideas, and let's see if I can get this across to you. It's a lot of fun. It's something that I've been living with for 30 or 40 years now. I call them the diamonds. I want you to think first of the hourglass, the old hourglass. Everybody knows what an hourglass. When's the last time you saw an hourglass? Well, been a while, probably. But the beauty of that, the representation of sand as the grains of moments of time, and then you flip it over and you do it again. It's a cycles that happen, and it's a kind of measurement. It's a kind of sensing, because sensing is the beginnings of a measurement, is it not? So I started out, and I think this was more of an intuitive thing. I think it's something about growth. What happens when you first start growing, whether it's a seed in the ground and I just imagined, you didn't think I could do it. Let this represent not Lubbock, but let's say the surface of a still lake, okay? Just Buffalo Lakes, okay, somewhere. Imagine on the surface 2 films, okay? And you're right between, okay? 2 little films, and you're right there. And you're gonna start growing, okay? What's gonna happen? You're wanting to expand, okay? That's the first thing about growth, some imperative to expand. And how are you gonna expand? What do we say about resistance? You gotta have something to push against, right? Okay, for the purpose of this schematic, you're between a couple of films, right? So where you push first, you're gonna get a little bit of action like that. You're pushing up here. You're pushing up here, and you're pushing down at the same time, right? So you're getting your resistance right where you push, and the film is causing this a little bit more tension out here on the whole film that you're between, 2 films that you're between, right? Okay, and as you increase that, it's going to be more like so. We had these great big things that don't work. So it starts growing, okay? And you're pushing up and you're pushing down. And at the same time, the tension in the films, you're beginning to get some resistance from out here. By the time you really build it up, you're getting resistance way out here, which from the place where you started, you couldn't even see these places out here, okay? But you're getting this resistance. Now, over this idea, I overlaid some things that are a whole nother area of study probably. One is music. One is the old sailing ship. The octaves in music and vibration, and levels of experience. This is stuff we can all go through, and you can test these ideas out. Let's see, let me just think, we ought to have an example. Anybody got a hobby or something like that, you know? Horseback riding, bicycle riding, anybody? I mean, if you got, what's some bizarre activity? Yes, sir.
I take care of prairie dogs.
You take care of prairie dogs?
Prairie dogs are pets, that's my hobby.
Do you have, and so what would be a specific, like, little project that you would do with them, or
well,
you just take care of them?
I take care of them, but you know, some days I feed them peas, some days I feed them wheat things, some days I bring up pellets.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't expecting this, but man, we'll go with it. I like it. I like it. Okay. Let's say, when do you feed them?
About 5 in the morning.
5 in the morning. Okay, that's a good start. Okay, now let's look at these. Let's look at these. One other thing to think about. Well, before we get to that, I'm going to come back and we're going to use that for an example. But let's look at a couple of ideas here. Consider linear time, you know, that we're all so familiar with, moving in a plane like this all the way across. Okay, and you're always in the center of it. Okay, you start down here, and as time moves this way, you're expanding, you're growing, you're adding. You have this idea, let's say, you already woke up, the alarm rang, and you woke up, you're laying in bed, and you're thinking, okay, I've got to feed the prairie dogs. So right there is the spark of an idea. It's like the complete idea is right there, right? You don't have to sit and visualize every little bit of it, but you know what you got to do. Let's say this, just for example, this is the first time you've ever had to feed the prairie dogs, okay? It's your new job, okay? And the actual final feeding of the prairie dogs is way down here, okay? So somehow you got to get from here to there with a certain passage of time. And as you lay there in bed, going, oh yeah, I got to feed the prairie dogs, okay? And then you're imagining, you start adding data, adding ideas that correspond to that need to feed the prairie dog, okay? Things like, okay, where's, the food? Okay, I think it's in the closet, okay? So that's one little idea of that that adds to this, your expansion of your idea before you get to the reality of it, okay? You're expanding with, you got to go get the food, you've got to go wake up the prairie dogs. That's another one, but all these little things, I've got to get out of bed too, and and what's happening is, these are things you know you have to do. They're the positive knowledge that you have that you've got to do these things in order to get on with feeding the prairie dogs, right? Okay, but what happens is, maybe you have this thought that, wait a minute, I don't know if I put the food back in the closet or in the stove. Where did I put that stuff, And so there's a reaction. What happens is there's a reaction to every active thought, okay? You make a proposition and you have the anti-proposition, the denial of that. The main one is, you got to get up, but it's so comfortable and it's so cold in the house, and it comes right back at you and says, no, don't get up, okay? So there's always this reaction to your action, okay? Now, okay, now this has taken us in the beginning of the octave. We're going to work the octave. We're going to have to think about several things kind of all at once here. In the octave, you're going to have two triads, okay? Do, re, mi. That's one triad, okay? And what happens is, the first triad is just pure mental stuff here, okay? You're setting an argument with yourself about how to go about feeding them, what to do. Did I really buy the food yesterday? You're still sleepy, kind of groggy. All these reactions to the thing that you got to do. It's happening, but all of a sudden, it takes you into the second level. First level is the action level. The second level is reaction level. It's where polarity sets in. It's always there. It's always going to be there. The third level you go into is going to reconcile those two things. What can that be? Well, the prairie dogs start screeching, barking, at the top of their little lungs. And it's driving you crazy. That helps to kind of, I got to do it. It makes it more intense. You've got to go do something about those prairie dogs. Okay? And it finally, at some point, I don't know what makes this happen. But some very serious thing happens. You're reconciling. You've balanced out the action and the reaction to it. You got to do it, but still you haven't made that move. You haven't gotten up, and all of a sudden, you hear, the door caves in because the wind's blowing hard, and now you've really got to get up, and it's a third force that comes in. It's at the interval between the first triad and the second triad. Okay, you got action, reaction. You've got that which reconciles it, which brings in the third from the unknown. Where does this come from? This was surely accidental. It might be just, they always get fed at 5 and it's 1 minute till 5. I got to get moving or they're going to be mad. Something like that. And so up you go, you finally get up. What makes you what's that, in that little moment when you go, you release all this argument back here and you actually get up. You make that first step out of bed, cold floor, whatever, but you've gone out of the first triad, which is all mental, and you've suddenly gone into the physical movement of working at, let's go get the little guys fed, Okay, so 1, 2, the third one, and then the fourth, with the third one, that first step you make, you've gone into the world of form, the world of the physical, okay? Now, hooray, now what? Why you're still gathering data. You're getting pulling your pants on. You're, getting some socks, stick of shoes or slippers on, something, keep your feet from getting on the cold floor. Splash some water on your face, do whatever. But it's gathering, and then you go look for the food, and you find it, okay? You gather all the food, you got everything you need. You walk in and the next step is, you got the food, but wait a minute, I'm headed out the wrong door here. Wait a minute, the prairie dogs are back in there, I moved them back over there. You're having to make a correction. Everything you do here is a step. Again, it's another action. It's a kind of action, but it's a triad that started in the physical instead of just the mental. So you're working like a positive action. Still, you got the food, you're moving, but may not be moving the right direction, and that's the reaction in the second triad. Action and reaction in the second triad. Form and then cause and effect. And that's what happens here. That's why you turn the corner up here at the top of the diamond, bottom of the diamond. You're still building stuff. And as you work into the third level, you come to the fourth level, which is cause and effect. I'm this step was not going to get me there. I'm going to have to change it and go over that way. Evaluation, you're now analyzing everything. In building buildings, it's the same thing. Look what's happened. You've gone through design projects, mental work, conceiving of the idea. It's there's another diamond at work with drawing schematics and drawing up the plans and writing a proposal and all those things. You go through the same process, thinking and then putting it into some kind of physical action. But at this point, you've got to turn and stay focused out here on the goal. Okay. And then that's when you make the cause and effect level, and it takes you into here. Okay, you've got out of the cause and effect level, then you finally realize you're on the right track, you're headed for the right door, and at that moment, you're doing the action of you're feeding these guys because you're doing it right. You're heading the right direction, and you got the food, and you open the door, and there they are. You see them, and you are feeding. This is the level of cyclic activity. But this whole thing is a cycle, right? Start, rise, fall, finish. You know, but it leads into another thing. So that fourth, fifth, and sixth level. The sixth level is cyclic or repetition. Okay, I'll write down a word here. Maybe this is not working. Cycles. This is the performance, the real performance of the feeding of the dogs, the little doggies. Okay, now. You haven't quite given them the food yet, okay? You've done everything, you're up there, you're at their cage, but there's this one more thing that has to be done, 4, 5, 6. You've got to get into the 7th level, which is, so you could turn around and walk out of the room and say, wait a minute, I'm the boss here. You're gonna eat when I tell you. Or any other number of things could cause you to not go through with this whole octave. But that's, so there's 2 points where you've got some real choice. Between the 3rd and 4th level, and between the cyclic level that you're really rolling with it, and the final actual doing of that. The actual feeding of them, okay? And that level is called structure. Repetition precedes structure. You repeat the actions, whether it's a single cycle or whether it's many, many, many cycles. All of us came in here tonight, we're all part of a cycle of entering this building. Each one of you is doing a cycle of coming in and going out. And but there's many, many, many cycles going on, okay? And you've done this many times. Look at all the cycles in your life. We're doing these diamonds with every activity and with every day, with every thought runs through this too. A thought rises, it has this initial spark, and it adds data, and it makes a turn to focus, and while it's expanding, it's going to have to turn and start contracting to focus onto the actual final feeding of the dogs. And look, from here on down to the focus, your goal, you're having to eliminate things. You've been adding things, getting up to that, and you're still, but it's kind of a downhill, easy run now. You're headed right towards your aim. And when you finally give them the food, you have accomplished the whole octave. Now, you can do this with any kind of project you do, any kind of work you do, any kind of activities where you're going to go horseback riding, you're going to go to the store and get something. Well, you run through these arguments. What do I need? You want, maybe make a list, maybe whatever. But all of these things, you've got to finally jump out of the mental into the actual physical doing of it. And now here's the most amazing thing to me is, see, this was level 7, the final, the structure. I don't know if you can read those. STR, something like that. This was cause and effect, right? FX, form, yeah. You go into the physical, and here was, I call it reconciling because it reconciles your polarity here. Okay, it takes it on into another, into the from the mental into the physical. Okay, is this making sense to you guys? Or am I, you know? You can apply these things to your own. You can come up with all kinds of diamonds here. But there's some amazing things that start to happen. First, let's overlay the old sailing ship, okay? And let's go back to the old ancient delineation of the elements into earth, air, and fire, and water. Down here, you're going to have water below the lake level, okay? Water. Over here, fire. Why is this fire? It's because fire, you know, heats the air, and it makes the wind. It blows, you know, here comes the wind. And that's the motivating force, is fire, desire, intention. Up here, what is this up here? This is, it's the intellect, the consciousness, the place, you know, the crow's nest in the old sailing ships. This is where the guy that's first sees the destination. He's up there looking for land. And that's what this is out here, is the destination, the earth. Well, I wish I could write. So earth, air, and fire, and water. And they're all working together. The water, the keel of the boat is down sensing down in the water. It's what gives you the feel that makes you able to steer. The intellect, the air is high, up here high, where you've got a higher vision, right? That's the advantage of building a good, strong, high, a certain proportion of a structure, is to give you better vision towards your goal. And the fire is the motivating force behind it. Now, all of this is got to be for a reason, and that's because of the cargo, the real aim, which is in the hold down here. That's the cargo that the ship's carrying. The prairie dogs, it's because you care about the prairie dogs, you know, and that's the boat you take to get them fed every morning, you know. Now, I don't know if this is going to help you guys. I hope it does. It's a way of, for me, it's been a way of kind of sensing where I am in any project or any. I mean, usually I'm way back down here, you know, just kind of, you know, and you know, and I play with the ideas of, yeah, this will work, that won't. But I think these will give you some ideas of how to kind of feel your way and give you some, maybe some confidence about, hey, you know what? There is a little kind of strange order to it, even if you don't do these things in order, which is a whole nother story. You can bounce around. This stuff reflects. There's all kinds of, a fellow named Gurdjieff said that human beings don't do things in the right order. He says, you don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You go from 1 to 4 to 2 to 8 to 5 and then to 7. Okay, now that that's clear. And why is that? It's because when you get this idea, how many times have you had this idea and you immediately get up and start running to go do it, you know? Or I'm gonna, hey, yeah, I can do this. And you jump into the physical, and then you go, oh my God, I got out to the car to go get the food, and I don't have my keys. Because you didn't think about getting the key. You just wanted to go do it. So then you go from 4, you got to go back to 2, because the 2 tells you, hey, I forgot the keys. And then 8. Now what? Now 8. It's a little bit slightly different numbering system. 8 takes you all the way to your final version of it, and that is once you get your keys, then you're okay. It makes the connection to make you want to go all the way through with this project, to go get the food, to feed the dogs, whatever. And then 8, and then back to 5. I don't know if 5 is actually 4 or if it's 5 here. Because what happens, let's look at these numbers again. I hope you can bear with me on this. It's pretty bizarre. There's these numbers 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7 came from the octave, and it's the octave being divided into oneness. If all things are, all events go through this kind of process, then they are dividing the totality into these pieces, into these levels. Now, where was I going with that? Did that make sense? Does anybody have a question that might help get us a little further into this more accurately? Anybody have questions about this stuff? You got it figured out? Okay, the 7 that divides into 1, it makes this repeating decimal, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, on and on and on. It never resolves. And oddly enough, it leaves out 3, 6, and 9. So there's, with the law of 7 here, which is what we're talking about, the octave that runs through all kinds of things in the universe, everything, I think. It's music, but it's also the structural framework. It's not, everything doesn't look like this, thank goodness. But the structure of it is, this is a facsimile, So believe it or not, and test it if you can. Study the idea of the octaves and the different levels, and onward through the fall. That's what's. I hope this has made a little sense to you. This is the first time I've explained this or tried to explain it before a group, so it's fascinating for me. And does anybody have any more? Would you like to do another example like that? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Can you show us 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7 musically so we can sense it through our ears?
1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. It's a very strange thing. Yeah, I don't know if that represents anything that I can understand, but say 1, 4. I don't know. Let's see if we get a 1 and a 4 and a 2. Does that remind you of Close Encounters? Does it? You may do it, yeah. And then the 8 would be, see, that's 1. 8 would be up here. 3, 5. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Okay. Similar thing, yeah. So it's really those two triads doing the same kind of thing: action, reaction, and reconciling it. Both in the on the lower triad. 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 8, 5, 7. Does that make sense?
It makes more sense.
Now this is interesting, use of words. Does it make sense? Wow! I think what we mean to say there is, does it make meaning? But does it make, because sense in the sense of meaning, okay? A language is just mind-boggling to me. I know Michael and I have run over days, weeks, and months, and hours and hours and hours, and miles, just tearing the language to shreds. You know, you got to do that. It's the most valuable tool we've got, perhaps, for approaching understanding. You know, and yet, what is it that we're trying to approach? It's not language. There's direct sensing. Is direct sensing the same as generative sensing? Do you guys have questions like that? Do these things go through your minds much? I mean, seriously, because I don't, you know, I don't know. I mean, some of you may think this is all ridiculous, and it certainly can be seen that way. I know that. No questions. Yes, ma'am?
I'm surprised you did it with triangles instead of like the monoliths.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that might be nice to do it as a spiral. And I've seen some of the work here at the campus, you know, where there are these extended repetitive forms in some of the models that are built they're really, really beautiful things. And by adjusting, see now the Nautilus would be adjusting somehow to the pressures of the ocean, to having to build in a certain way, and it turns him when he builds, you know. And then the next one, it bent, you know, there's that proportion, the golden mean proportion that folds out of itself larger and larger each time. You know. Wow. Well, I don't know. I feel like sometimes that I'm doing a bad job of getting some of these ideas across. I don't know. But you guys have your attention is mind-boggling to me. And I really deeply am moved by it. And I would love any kind of feedback or questions. I think that's where we learn a lot of stuff, because you know, I don't know precisely how this is going through your minds. It's like you know, if the teacher walks into the classroom and says, "Oh, all these beautiful blank minds, I can fill them up," you know. But yes, ma'am.
I was curious about your comment that you think the universe is composed of sevens.
So composed of sevens. I think that because this represents events. You know, Buckminster Fuller called it overlapping episodes. That's how he defined overlapping episodes of experience. And so I simply apply these to anything. The appearance of anything. The specific forms of things, I don't know if that can be delineated through this. Again, this is a framework of reference about, you know, I want to say processes. Is it processes? Processes doesn't sound like the right word. It sounds like another thing, you know. And when I say everything can be referenced to these, yeah, somebody tried to stump me. Let's have somebody see if you can stump me with one. I'm sure you can, but you know, it'd be fun to find out why. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Like, as a musician, do you kind of identify the octave scale with this kind of definitions of?
This I don't know. My music is more probably habitual. You know, my learning of music has been kind of I learned some chords, blundered into some how to play a few things, and then
As you go from like the 7 to the 8 in the scale,
Yeah.
there's like a kind of actualization of something.
there's some things, you know, the seventh leads. It wants to lead you somewhere. And so, okay, let's look at that. The seventh, the structure, you've gone through the octave, and the seventh, it wants to resolve into what? Into the next diamond. And so what's going to be happening is you're going to be either ascending scale or descending scale. So in which case everything I said would be backwards, okay? I don't know how I got here sometimes. I love it though. And so here's the fun thing. You've heard the old thing, anytime you make a move towards something, it makes a move towards you too, right? So your goal, which you might have thought was way down here at this little apex, is really moving towards this the eighth level. This is where they meet, is at the eighth level. Structure kind of, I think, blends into this eighth one, in which case it opens up from this diamond. There is no actually little meeting of these lines down here. They're open at both, diamonds are open at both ends. Remember the film on the two films that were between here. So it opens on to whatever the next diamond's going to be, and that can take you on into, this, like with a building, it may be you finished the building, it is open, and now you're going into the diamond of its functioning as a building. People coming in and going out, and they're doing the same kind of thing through here. Many, many diamonds. And think of this as you're constantly, this is just one diamond we looked at, but the diamonds are at every little point along here, when you have an action and a reaction. At that point, that's another opening onto diamonds, and there's interferences constantly going. These reactions come from other diamonds. It's a unfathomably complex webbing that goes on. But I call it the beautiful conundrum, It's a puzzle. And we'll always be stuck in this puzzle. This is a little framework I use to help me see that the puzzle is there all the time. And it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to conquer it or to outwit it even, It means that I'm going to be aware that man, we're stuck in these crazy processes. The flows of these, I call them the diamonds. They flow from one to the next, from another, and they multiply. They flow into many diamonds. That's where we start getting too many ideas, and they wind up turning us around completely or spinning. Think about a boat. Think about the wake of the boat. It doesn't make these perfect little triangular trail behind the boat. It makes these spiraling eddies going on behind it. It's circling behind, and the same thing happens. It can be happening as you don't stay focused on your goal. These reactions can actually turn you around. They spiral you off into distraction. My dear friend Jimmy Dale Gilmore did a gig down in Houston a few years back, and during the course of the gig, he made some very disparaging remarks about the last administration and some of the people in it. And there was a reviewer, a critic, who was there for the show. And a few days later, Jimmy got an email, which was a review of the show, and it said, "Mr. Gilmore, a man who never met a digression he didn't take." and it went on to tell what happened. And I thought that's a beautiful thing. I think we all do that. We all meet digressions that we just don't refuse to take, to follow them. We're intrigued by distraction and staying focused. Sometimes this helps me stay focused on some things, and other times it can lead to distraction itself. So let's finish up on the slides, and then we might do the movie as well. What do we got here? Oh, that part's got to go off. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. This was in Russia. Now, again, let's think about what made me take this picture. I was on another bus. It was raining. This was in Leningrad at the time. And the bus I was on started passing another bus, and I glimpsed this head turning around, several windows in front of me. I leaped out of my side of the bus over to the window and snapped this picture just as she was turning right around. Some funny little glimpse of somebody about to just turn around and look out the window. And it turned out to be a wonderful, beautiful little face looking out into the rain. Next one, please. Yeah. Oh, man. This was 6th Street. I stopped this guy, and I must say, I asked him how he lost his fingers, and it was a motorcycle accident. This was the Pecan Street Festival in Austin, but it didn't slow him down, obviously. Next one, please. Thank you. Oh, and I don't know if you can see this. There's a building called the Round Top Cafe in Big Springs, and this little old lady was the proprietress, and I stopped in there because I was fascinated by the building itself. It turned out that it was a franchise. There were 3 or 4 of those. I tracked down 3 of them. One was in Colorado City, and the other one was in Sweetwater. And this one is the only one still standing. But she was in the back room just cussing up a storm, just cussing out the sheriff and everybody ever came and gave her any problems about the way she ran her business there. She had a little pool hall in the back and sold a little beer on the side. But it was a fascinating day. Okay, thank you. Next one. This was a kid in Kiev fishing in a no-fishing zone. Michael, remember we were talking about what this sudden change all over the world of people standing up and saying, "Hey, no, no more of this. We're stopping it here and now." I bet this kid's in on it. He says, "No, I will fish here. I will fish here because the sign says no fishing." I love the attention that he was paying. Next one, please. And this was at the graveyard. The siege of Leningrad killed a couple of million, or over 1 million people. And it's a very, very somber place. And this was right on the edge of the cemetery. There was a place, and some of the guys were crying, and it was a rainy day in Russia. Next one. That's a cat. Next one. This guy, man, I gotta read something here. I think I can find this one faster than I didn't find the other one. But they were marked earlier. This book is falling apart. It's been around lots of places. Let's see. missing page over there.
Michael, do you have this kind of problem when you're trying to read stuff? No, you do your homework. Okay. Ah, there it is. I found it.
I appreciate you guys putting up with me. This has been great fun for me. I'm gonna finish up with one reading here, and then we'll run through the slides real quick, and then I'll do a few songs at the end here. Now and then, one of the old boys will look up and look at you. If not right in the eyes, then right between them, dead on. Sometimes they'll see you coming a long ways off and glue their eyes to you for as long as it takes you to get to where they are and to go on past, or till you just mosey off in some other direction. Either way, brother, you done been looked at, but good. Whether you know it or not, you stay looked at. Like a good slap in the face or a big old kiss on the mouth. It stays with you. Sort of a reverse of the old camera steals your soul theory. When one of these cats looks at you, really looks, it's like it sticks something solid and real on you. Like it sticks a sign on you that says, kick me, or I molest ducks, or a sign that says, ask me about my grandkids, or any other bit of sense or nonsense, except it's not quite in the realm of nonsense, though it's hard to pin down as pertaining to the realm of sense either. Somehow it just adds a little scrap of material to your soul you didn't even know it needs, but it does. The whole universe is exchanging these.
Yeah, next slide.
And this was in Kiev. This little lady I was trying to get a good picture of this arch, which is a monument to the revolution. And this lady wandered into it, and I almost dropped my camera. I said, this is too good. Is that the coolest purse you ever saw in your life? Makes me want to have a purse almost, man. Is that great? Is that great? Yeah, next one, thanks. Oh man, I wish you could see this better. It's this is a wildfire down in right outside of Bastrop. But this one was 1984. I think it was 84, yeah. Since then, I don't think it was in this area where the fire happened. It was back north of Bastrop. They lost, I think, 1,500 homes out there. You guys probably heard all the news about all that. Next one, please. This is a building that burned down in Fredericksburg not long after I took it. I did not burn it down. There's a picture of an old windmill and a water tank on my first album, the West Texas Waltzes and Dust Blown Tractor Tunes. And I took a picture of it after driving by it, probably 50 or 60 times over a 10-year period. I finally stopped and took a picture of it with a big old 4x5 camera, and literally 2 months later, it got bulldozed. So if you feel urge to take that picture, do it. It might be gone tomorrow. Okay, next one, please. This was just too mind-boggling for me. Even the elephants are holding trunks. You know, everybody else is holding hands. This was here in Lubbock too. Next one. I don't know what to say about this. Next one. Wow. I really don't know what to say about this one. It was in Italy. I just titled it Macbeth, Macbeth, Escher, Escher. So, next one, please.
Ah, these guys. Okay, one more reading. I'm sorry, are we going too late? I haven't kept track of any kind of...
I have not kept track of anything resembling time, which I don't believe in anyway. What? It's compressing? Okay. We're narrowing down to this other end of the diamond. Okay. These guys, oh yeah. Yes. Ah. There's a couple of photography terms in this one. The law of light intensity, which is an inverse law of intensity. The intensity of a light source is equal to, inversely equal to the distance, the square of the distance from the source, okay? The light falling on a subject is inversely, man, I get more mixed up on this one, but I know how it works. So if you've got a light source, say a window open, and you're 4 feet from the window, if you move another 4 feet away, you get the square of, that'd be 1/16 of the light that you were getting if you were, at the 4 foot level, right? Does that make sense? Diminishes quickly. The same is true of the law of gravitation. The attraction is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. Okay, 4 divisions. These guys, I got to tell you, I don't know if you've heard me sing the song about split and slide, but these guys, I think it's split and slide on the ends and their dads in the middle. They were at the Canton, what do they call it? First Thursday, something like that. First Friday, I don't know. It was a flea market down there. 4 divisions. Cubists of a sort, each bent on his own peculiar way, each shadowed by variations of his own theme, each one constantly beside himself with double vision, double talk, double trouble. Oddly enough, or perhaps not, these are the very traits they admire most in each other. Each one knows in his heart that there's 2 sides to everything. So by the time they've all had their say on any given subject and responded to each other's both sides, they have amassed a rough total of 256 opinions on absolutely anything that is capable of having an opinion of it. This goes on all day and sometimes late into the night. And while none of them know anything, not a bit, about the zone system in photography, or about the universal law of gravitational force, their very lives, thoughts, conversations, all radiate in a perfect and disperse in perfect exemplification of that law of inverse proportion. Fortunately, what they lack in light and intensity, they make up for in prolonged exposure to the subject. Sometimes the end result is just brilliant. Yeah, next slide. This is my favorite dog picture I took. This was in Lubbock, about 1972. Makes you want to dance. Next one, please. Okay, let's quickly go through the next ones. We can run through at least a few of them anyway. There's one of my first oil paintings 100 years ago. Next one was the second one, I think. Nice color. Okay, yeah, this was when I started doing these drawings. I sat down, and 6 hours later, this was staring me in the face. And I went, whoa, what the hell is this? And then a few days later, I did this next one.
It's not as easy as it looks.
Next, please. I started drawing these, and when I was working on this one, I started having visions of the later ones, which were to come a year or so later. I started putting them into landscapes. Next one, please. Yeah, like this. This was the first one I did with, in a landscape. It looks like it's done with a wide-angle lens. The perspective seems to be kind of curved. And I've studied a lot of photography, a lot of black and white photography particularly, and I think the wide-angle lens kind of seeped into my drawing sense as well. Next one. And to the desert. Yeah, let's keep moving a few more, and then. Okay, yes. Somebody asked me if I had done any little models of any of these things. This is one I did, I think, for an architecture project around here. I'm not sure. Might have been for some other strange project down in Austin. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of these of this model, I think. Yeah. That's where you go in. Okay. Was that those? Okay, and then there should be some drawings now the next batch. And is that it? Is that all? Okay, that was it. Oh yeah, I didn't put those other ones in there. That makes sense. Okay. Let's get ready. We're gonna do, this is a little thing. These movies, and thanks to Andy and Curtis, the folks over at the Southwest Collection for putting this together so fast from Super 8 film onto the DVD, digitalizing the planet. Okay.
I think I can do this. Let's see. I might want a harmonica. Yeah. But I might need.
Here, questions will stand up.
Okay. Yeah, that idea. Put me in first.
Yeah, man, it's gonna work, I think. Usually I have a rear view mirror so I can see what's coming at me from behind.
I just dropped the pick.
Don't go away.
Okay, we'll try. Let's go ahead and try it. We'll just run it and I'll catch up with you. Maybe. Yeah, go.
This is from Clarendon to Claude, Texas, 30 miles at a rough speed of 300 miles an hour. This is kind of a road song. Sometimes I don't know where this dirty road is taking me. Sometimes I can't even see the reason why. But I guess I'll keep it rambling. Lots of blues and lots of gambling. Seems easier than waiting around to die. One time friend, I had a ma and I even had a pa. He beat her with a belt once 'cause she cried. She told him to take care of me. She headed down to Tennessee. Seemed easier than waiting around to die. Well, I come of age and I found a girl in a Tuscaloosa bar. She cleaned me out and hit it on the slide. Lord, I tried to kill the pain. I bought a little wine and I hopped a train. Seemed easier than waiting around to die. Then a friend of mine, he said he knew where some easy money was. So we robbed a man and brother, did we fly. But the sheriff caught up with me, he drug me back to Muskogee. 2 long years of waiting around the time. Now I'm out of prison, I got me a friend at last. She don't drink or think or cheat or lie. Lord, her name is Codeine, she's the sweetest thing I've seen. And together we're gonna wait around and die. Yeah, together we're gonna wait around and die. Oh, together we're gonna wait around and die.
And on it goes.
These things were really fun to make. I set the camera up on a tripod right inside the pickup and used a cable release, so every frame in here was done with my thumb. Which is a different kind of hitchhiking, I guess, huh? Wow, I hadn't thought about that. The second one that we're going to be doing here shortly, I see Claude on the horizon right up there. Everything looks pretty reasonable at this speed. Have you noticed that? I've got to tell you that after I made these films, it was extremely hard to drive less than 80 miles an hour on the highway. I guarantee it. This one goes from Clarendon, kind of does a little turnaround. But the thing I noticed is these things get faster and faster. Is there's always 3 things confronting you. One is the earth, and the other is the sky. The other is not the Dairy Queen. The other is the road. Well, there's the earth, there's the sky. This is the road for what it's worth. It's a ribbon, it's a river, it's a wave. It's an arrow and it's a snake. It's asleep and it's awake, and it's stretching from the cradle to the grave. Thank God for the road and the hubcaps and the headlights and the mud flaps and the tail lights and the dim lights and the bright lights. Thank God for the road and the rains that come to clean us and all the miles that come between us, the guardian angels who have seen us. Thank God for the road, no matter what it takes to drive it. Life and death can seem so private, still you think you will survive it. Thank God for the road. There's the sky, and here's the earth. This is the road for all it's worth. It's a ribbon, it's a river, and it's a wave. It's an arrow and it's a snake. It's asleep and it's awake, and it stretches from the cradle to the grave. Thank God for the road, the soft shoulders you can cry on, the hard nerves you rely on, the fast curves you can die on. Thank God for the road and all the stars that shine above it. No matter what you once thought of it, you knew you'd always come to love it. Thank God for the road and those old telephone poles, a cup of coffee and a sweet roll, when you're trying to save your own soul. Thank God for the road.
Have we got to Idlew yet? It's getting close, I think. This is
Lorenzo, yeah. Have you noticed how the first thing that starts to blur and disappear are things that are near you, near the edge of the road? And the things that are further off, seem to hang in there a little longer. Which is as it should be, I suppose. And that's the great thing about the plains and driving on these roads, these wide open roads, is you see something on the horizon, and it doesn't suddenly disappear as you go around a curve or go over a hill or something. It's there. You're looking at it for miles and miles. If it's not in your direct conscious attention, it's at least in your unconscious. You're kind of, oh yeah, there's Abernathy out there. And, 15 minutes later, yeah, there's Abernathy out there. 5 or 10 minutes later, I said, this must be Abernathy I'm getting close to. Oh, yeah. This was in Clarendon, Texas. The interlude part, yeah. I think I'll do a song here that it's a way different kind of road, but roads speed up and slow down. That bird reminded me of it, and a dead animal. I was in Terlingwood just a couple of days ago, and I was not driving a bulldozer, but I have been known to. And I went out back, and an owl flew out of the back part of our house and flew out across the desert. It's a very big one. It was a spotted owl of some sort. I hadn't seen one quite like this. It was pretty large, and it was particularly heartwarming and wrenching to me, because 2 years ago, almost on this very day, it was the end of October or first part of November, I had gone out to Terlingwood, and I'd found a dead owl out in the backyard. And okay, here we go. This is probably, this is Odessa to Junction. And things are speeding up here, as you can see. Well, speeding up now. And but across these great expanses, you come out and wind up at your house out in the desert and go out in the back and you find a dead owl. And he's been there obviously for a week or so. He's stiff, his wings are outstretched, and he's hanging from his right claw in some vegetation that was out there. And this really knocked me out because I'm always out there looking for spooks and, talking to the wind and the dust devils and the rattlesnakes and the lizards and the coyotes for sure, javelinas and red racer snakes and all kinds of little critters. And I was wondering, my God, this dead owl, what can this mean? I still haven't figured it out, but that night I went and sat down and wrote haiku, or studied haiku, as they say, and came up with it's called a Senryu, I think, a series of haiku that are related, and kind of helped get me through whatever ordeal that might have been. And it gradually turned into a song by repeating the third line a couple of times with each stanza. The wise old night owl. Well, almost looked like a flying owl. Snared by morning glory vines, hangs dead in the sun, hangs dead in the sun, hangs dead in the sun. Scarecrow in the field, mistaken for no man's land. A black crow flies south, a black crow flies south, a black crow flies south. One thundering cloud builds up out west and divides. My thoughts fall like rain, my thoughts fall like rain, my thoughts fall like rain. Waving blades of grass, what's all this golden silence ringing in my ears, ringing in my ears, ringing in my ears? The wise old night owl, snared by morning glory vines, hangs dead in the sun, hangs dead in the sun, hangs dead in the sun. Thank y'all so very much for being here. I hope you got something out of what I was struggling to say. And there's always more room for questions and answers anytime. So thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you, and Chris. Oh, the whole gang. You guys are utterly wonderful.